People come in with all different things wrong: allergies, cravings, PMS, high blood pressure, lack of sex drive, fatigue, difficulty sleeping, stubborn belly fats. Those are all the big body symptoms. What I've noticed, because I have guided thousands of people through detox, is like everything gets better.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Inventor and author of Primal Habits, Uninflamed, Master of You, and Body Thrive, and soon to be released, The Witch's Cancer Journal.
A weaver of words and ancient worlds into the future.
Plumbing for depth in the playground of your continual reinvention.
A wisdom bridge, Agayana Yogini.
And now the moment we've been waiting for is here.
Ringleader of Club Thrive and Wellness Pro Academy.
A freedom warrior, earth mother, proud mama, devoted wife.
Not your grandmother's Ayurveda.
Futurist. Biohacker. Guru and Goofball.
Where truth and freedom prevail.
Evolving the ancient into the future.
Welcome to the Thrive with Cate Stillman podcast. Made for you by us.
So again, in the chat, just let me know how many detoxes have you done, and if you've never done any, and if this is your first, I'd like to know that too, because my guess is that we have the full range here, but maybe a little bit more on the experience side. But I want to make it relevant to everybody that's here. So that's really that is my aim. All right. I'm going to go into some slides, and this should help us get a sense of maybe what is our edge next? Like, what do we want out of our next detox? And, for me, what I have found over the years is like, there's a lot of different reasons to do it. And I look at building the habit, like the automated habit of detox, so that it's much easier to sense what our bodies need, both in the moment, but then also in the seasons, and then also in the time or stages of life that we have. So, for those who don't know me, my background is in Ayurvedic medicine and in yoga and the therapeutics of yoga, and also the philosophy of yoga. So I'll sometimes throw in a bit of Sanskrit here and there, as it's helpful to understand concepts that are, I would say, less easy to understand in the English language. So in Ayurvedic medicine, and Ayu means life, and Veda is the art or the science or the study of life. And that's really what Ayurveda is all about. And in Ayurvedic medicine, detox is the way we remove disease from the body. I'm just going to let that settle in. So detox, or what we call panchakarma, which is the 5 actions of detox, is the way that we remove disease from the body. Now, this is quite different than how, say, Western medicine or allopathy does it. So holistic medicines are much more about where the body is in homeostasis, or returning to center. Again, in Sanskrit, we would use the word svastha, meaning seated in the self. So seated in the awareness of what is the self and what is our connection to cosmos. So the self with a capital S, the self with a lowercase s, meaning you as your individual, but also what is not self. So that which is other. And the word for other in Latin is allo, A-L-L-O. And that's where allopathic medicine comes from. It's where allostasis comes from, right? And so allostasis is when the body is not in homeostasis. So what detox is doing is it's returning the body from an allostasis experience, an allostatic experience, and bringing it back into homeostasis. Now, those of you who are on more of a, we'll say, evolutionary healing path or an evolutionary enlightenment path, you might notice that homeostasis is an evolving target. And we'll get into that today, because we'll get into, sometimes we're detoxing physically, right? We're just really moving junk out of the trunk. And other times we're up-leveling our consciousness. We're wanting to enter a more sophisticated experience of what it is to be a human being. Okay, so that's a pretty big range, right? It's a pretty big range of like removing disease from the body to becoming enlightened. All of those are fair game. So what I'd like to see in the chat is like, what's more relevant? What is more relevant to you right now? Like, is it you're here to lose 10 pounds in your next detox, or you're here to just maybe get some congestion out of your lungs or your sinuses or your stomach, or you're here to become more grounded, in your body. You just want to feel better. Maybe you want to prevent some of the aging process, slow the aging process, and see if you can de-age or decelerate aging or even reverse aging. Or are you here more on an enlightenment journey, really to get more in touch with your soul, your purpose for the next stage of your evolution, or to even experience maybe unity consciousness or some of the subtler experiences of integrated consciousness. And they're all good reasons. There's no better than, there's no worse than. I have detoxed for all of these reasons over time. I've also just detoxed because it's on the schedule, right? It's simply the change of the seasons, and it's on the schedule. It's what's happening right now. Like it or not, come hell or high water, it's just something I do seasonally. So all of those are fair reasons. I just want to see in the chat. It's good. We've got a full range here. It's like clarity on all levels, releasing body inflammation, slowing aging, enlightenment, lightening up physically. One of the reasons I find I like to detox more and more is to thin my fat tissue, like my fat tissue. So fat tissue, and we'll get into this in a little bit. Fat tissue is where we store toxins, and it's really easy for our fat tissue to get junky in the modern age, especially those of us, I travel a lot, those of us who travel a lot, maybe we're away from our own kitchens, maybe we're eating out, maybe even more than we want to. It's really easy for the fat cells, the adipose tissue, to get junky. And so sometimes the feeling of that is just like your lymph feels congested, or you just feel like you're not truly hungry. You're not maybe as clear in your physiology as you would like to feel. And then, some people detox. It's really, really hard for some people to detox. And so some people are doing this just to get better at doing hard things and doing things that they know are good for them. I know for some people that are carrying a lot of junk in their fat tissue, you may have a really strong aversion to detox. Like, you should do it, you should do it, you should do it, but you can't get yourself to do it. So I just want to presence all of these things because all of us are here. And then I know a lot of you are here because you're in our detox certification program with Wellness Pro Academy, and you're wanting to do this with other people. And to me, it's really important that everybody feels A-okay with showing up exactly as they are into any given detox or challenge that we might do. And understanding that for some people, it's just super easy. They're used to doing hard things. And for other people, this is really hard, and they might only do 5% of what the group does. And that's fine with me. That is totally fine with me. Just like, know your reason why. That's important. We just covered that. So everyone, you wrote it down on the screen. Now I want you to, I know many of you have like pieces of paper and pens, and you might take like a full piece of paper and just write down your why. Why for this detox? I'll do it too. Because I'm not just the leader, I'm a member. So what is your big why? What is your big why for this detox? And you may have a few. And see if there's this game many of you have played called 5 Whys. See if you can go a few whys deeper. So look at the first few, and it's like, is there a really big one that's one step under? All right. And then I like to not overthink it, but it is helpful. It is helpful to know. Before I get into my slide deck, the other thing I want to emphasize here is the easiest way to detox, like the easiest thing you can do to help yourself out, is to schedule it, is just put it on your calendar. So if you haven't done that yet, open your calendar. So at Club Thrive, ours is April 3rd to 24th. At the end, we'll give you a deal, or even my team will just put a link in so you can get a deal on a ticket if you don't have one. Even if you don't get a ticket to my detox, still schedule your detox. Now, I have found, usually when I put things on my schedule, and many of you have done this with things that like you want to live up to, it's like an aspirational scheduling, right? You're putting it there because you are aspiring to do that, right? That is actually enough. It follows this 2-minute rule in Atomic Habits, which is like it takes you less than 2 minutes to schedule it, but it changes your thinking. So it creates a much more neuroplastic future, just simply just simply by scheduling it, just simply by putting it on the calendar. Now, those of you who are coming with us, many of you will do the fast mimicking diet with us. And we're doing that April 8th, or a bunch of us are kicking that off April 8th to 12th. So while your calendar's open, if you're coming with us, put FMD April 8th to 12th. And I'm going to get into in a little bit about what that is and why we're doing it. I just want you to take advantage of your calendar being open. If you're also doing the liver stone flush, you might include, you might either start the 7th and the 12th, or start the 8th and end the 13th. It all depends for people. Like, you want that last day, that stone flush, to be when you're near a bathroom that following morning, and to have an easier afternoon. So a lot of people will do that the 12th to the 13th. All right, that's it. So we just did two very, very simple things that really actually will change your future. So one is you scheduled it, right? And then the first is you wrote down your why. And the second thing is you scheduled it. So we're only, 15 minutes into this call, but you've actually taken significant action. This is presencing future you. So your why is about the future you want to experience. You put something on the schedule in your future. Now, that is not insignificant, because it's actually how change happens. Often what people do is they're like, oh yeah, I should detox, but, right? And then what happens is the buts come up, and it's like, but I'm traveling, but there's a bar mitzvah or a union or wedding or fill in the blank, right? Or a big crunch at work, right? And so what that actually does is it does like the reverse of neuroplasticity. It creates a fixed mindset. And so simply just by knowing your why and scheduling it, you've gotten your money's worth out of this free workshop. All right. So now let's get into a bit of what we do and why with how we detox. So I'm going to get in today why detox, what we do in the simple detox. I'm going to get a little bit into specific detoxes. We talk about healing crises, and then how to join us. And then I'll answer any questions, because I want anyone, especially those of you who haven't met me, to be able to ask questions. Anyone in detox certification can also ask me questions. You can all ask me questions. For those who don't know me, I've written a whole bunch of books. I write two types of books. One are books on innovative health, mostly habit-driven health. And then the second is on career paths for wellness pros. We have a lot of wellness pros in Wellness Pro Academy that follow us, and they also use a lot of our baseline, like how to help people change habits. My most recent book is Witch's Cancer Journal. Anyone who's read it, thank you so much. And thanks for the reviews on Amazon. It's great to see so many reviews coming in. If you haven't left a review, please do. It is our lifeblood for authors. All right. So Club Thrive, I'm just going to show you what we do in Club Thrive. This is my annual mastermind, which is based on primal habits, in body thrive habits, and strategic life design. And so at Club Thrive, what we look to do is reverse the negative stressors of modern culture. So most of modern culture is a negative stressor habits. These are automated in Western culture. And Western culture is now a global culture. So we've automated the habits of snacking, of eating late, of sedentary lifestyle, convenience foods, short-term decision-making, which means that you do the easy thing in the short term and delay hard decisions for the long term. That leads to worry, negative thinking, and we also sacrifice sleep. So those are all just totally normal now, but they're not normal for how humans have evolved over time. Positive stressors are the habits that humans had. They're also called longevity habits. They're also called adversity habits. They're all the same thing. They're doing the hard thing in the short term that makes life way better in the long term. And this is what helped develop the human brain size. Many of you know that the human brain size has decreased by 10% over the last 10,000 years since the beginning of agriculture. And that is significant, because when we look at primal habits, we're really looking at, like, what are the habits that caused our brains to develop to full size? And wouldn't that be nice to get some of that 10% back? Wouldn't it be great if we increased our neuroplasticity instead of going into neurodegeneration? So that's really what we do in Club Thrive. And in here is detox. You'll see in the longevity habits here, like this number 2 on intermittent fasting, detox, fitness, nutrition, purposeful living, breathing, meditation, sleep. There's also things like cryotherapy, urine therapy. We can get into a little bit of those later. The positive stressor habits reverse aging. And if you want the millions of studies that go with that, there's 300 of them listed in Uninflamed. So you can go into that book. It's free on Amazon.com. And you can really get into, let me just show you. That's the blue and white one here, that one. This one goes into all of the science behind primal habits, adversity habits, longevity habits. Okay, so this is, to me, always the case. This is how I feel before detox. Even if it's like, honestly, like it's not about the weight at all. It's about what in Ayurvedic medicine we call ama, or that which is undigested. Now, that which is undigested can be it can be physical, but it can also be subtle. When we look at how many impressions we're taking in through our ears and our eyes every day, let alone our tongue, so are the sensory impressions that we're taking in every day, we are bloated. We're just simply bloated at the level of impression. If you think of, 100 years ago, there was radio, right? 200 years ago, there wasn't radio. So like anything related to like visual, like we're doing right now, is so recent. It's so recent, especially if we take like a 200,000 year perspective of human evolution, which isn't that long, right? Like what has happened in the last 150 years, like we're just inundated. Our senses are inundated. In Ayurvedic medicine, that is a cause of disease. That is a cause of aging. It's just sensory overload. So much of what I teach in Simple Detox is this letting go, just this unplugging, just this doing less, taking in less food, taking in less sensory stimulation, taking in less artificial anything, and just more no thing. Doing more no thing. Less eating, less time doing a bunch of random activities, less TV, video, stimulation, just less is so much more. And the degree to which we have sensory overload, it's addictive, and it's part of our adrenaline addiction culture. So this is part of a negative stressor habit, not a positive stressor habit. So we might, whether it's in the subtle body or the physical body, we just feel a little bloated, a little overwhelmed. Some of us feel a lot bloated and a lot overwhelmed. Now, what we know, because I've been leading Club Thrive and Body Thrive, if we take those two together, I've been leading this since 2012, where we have the habit of seasonal detox. So that's over a decade of data on seasonal detox, is that it gets easier and easier and easier to detox. So the more you do this, the level that you'll feel the before, that bloat of the before, is increasingly subtle. So it also means the more you desire detox, it's increasingly not subtle. So it's ironic. So the more congested we are, the more weighed down we are, the more white fat we're carrying, right? The more sensory overload, adrenaline addiction we're carrying, the less likely we are to want to detox. So these things, the positive stressor habits, the more you crave positive stressor habits instead of negative stressor habits, that's a sign of how healthy you are. The more you are in a pattern of negative stressor habits is the more unhealthy you are. That means the more accelerated your aging is, the shorter your health span is. So there's health span and there's lifespan. Right now, we're keeping people alive we can look at the president of the United States. Like, we're keeping people alive longer and longer due to interventions, like pharmaceutical interventions and surgical interventions. That isn't necessarily an increase of health span. Health span, statistically, globally, is shrinking. Even in places like Canada, lifespan is showing, we now have data on Canada's lifespan has gone down a couple of years since COVID, right? So we're seeing lifespan decreasing as well, but lifespan is still much longer than health span. So many of you have seen children, teens that look like they're already unhealthy. We see degenerative issues happening. We're even seeing dementia happening to people in their 40s now. That's all indicative of a shortening of health span. So what we want to do and what we can do through detox is we can reverse that rapidity of aging, and we can gain health span back. I think that's so important. And what I've seen, I started Yoga Healer in 2002, and I remember the first one of the first people that came to me that was over 100 pounds overweight. And I met her at a yoga studio. She's a brilliant yoga teacher. But she was drinking, she was addicted to Diet Coke. She was drinking 2-liter bottles of Diet Coke a day. Right? Her health span had shrunk so considerably. And then over the years, and it can be a process of automating these habits, these hard habits, these adversity habits until you crave them. And that's what we're going to get into. So this is how it should be every time. So even those of you who are like, yeah, I'm my 10th time here, my 20th time here. Yep. And it's still like this, right? It's still like this, that our fat tissue gets a little bit junky. We take in a lot of impressions, just part of modern life. And this is it's a seasonal reset. In Ayurvedic medicine, it's called Ritu Charya. Ritu Charya is one of the ways we eliminate disease from the body. Ritu means seasonal. Charya is the spinning of the wheel, the spinning of the cycles of life. So the seasonal spinning, this seasonal release, huge, absolutely huge. It's absolutely non-negotiable according to ancient medicine. And it's also just us mimicking what happened when we were primal. So before agriculture, nature provided scarcity, right? Fasting time. And so this naturally happened. Now, because no matter when you go into the grocery store in a westernized culture, right, there's food. Your pantry probably always has food. So it's easy to get bloated. Okay. So there's all these symptoms. There's body symptoms. So some people come in, what we've noticed over the years here, people come in with all different things wrong. Allergies, cravings, PMS, water retention, emotional eating, overeating, headaches, susceptibility to viruses, flus, mucus, postnasal drip, high blood pressure, lack of sex drive, fatigue, difficulty sleeping, stubborn belly fat, cellulite, feeling stuck, tongue coating, weight creep where you're just gaining a few pounds a year, joint pain, stiffness upon rising, poor digestion, poor elimination, skin issues. Those are all the big body symptoms. What I've noticed, because I have guided thousands of people through detox, is like everything gets better. Now, sometimes things get worse before they get better in detox. When things get worse before they get better, that's called a healing crisis. And we'll talk about that in a minute. It's, to me, a healing crisis, and different doctors and different practitioners have different ways of seeing healing crisis. I see it as like more toxins are releasing than can get to the exits. Right. So then what do? It's like we open the exits. We open the bottleneck to the exits. Pretty simple. Sometimes it's really uncomfortable, but it's a sign that things to me are going right. Things are going right. We just need to open the channels to the exits. People also do detox for mental reasons, so anxiety, overwhelm, depression. I just learned this past week that depression has become the #1 global health issue for the human species. It overtook heart disease and cancer. Irritability, brain fog, difficulty sleeping, feeling stuck, heavy, stagnant, poor willpower, unmotivated. So even if we just feel kind of complacent in our lives, or that we're not really sure of our next purpose, that we're not waking up inspired and motivated and on target, or if we've given up on our deeper dreams or bigger goals, that is a really, really good reason to detox. It's part of the reason that we want to automate this seasonally, so that no matter what, we never go. To me, it's like we do 2 detoxes. I'll show you a slide in a minute. It's like we do 2 detoxes and 2 challenges a year, so that every 90 days in Club Thrive, there's a reset. So you're never more than like 2 months away from the next great leap forward, from the next big change, the big shift. And to me, this is really important, because then that means if you are depressed or anxious, it shouldn't last more than a couple of weeks before the next reset. So you never get too stuck. I was just at a family reunion this past week, and one of my great aunt's boyfriend has migraines. He's had debilitating migraines for years. And I'm talking to him like, I used to have migraines. They're terrible. I feel for you. I'm so sorry. Do you want to get rid of them? What are you willing to do? So if you see things on this list, it's like that should be a real clue to like, oh, that is a sign that my body's in allostasis. That is a sign there's more layers to excavate. Detox is very much like unpeeling an onion. There's more layers to excavate. And so what we see, like I'm thinking of one person that was in Body Thrive, came into Club Thrive, Yoga Health Coaching, Wellness Pro Academy, and she had allergies, more on the physical side. It took literally 5 seasons of detox, at least 5 years, like 10 seasons of detox to get to the root. But along the way, she'd feel a little better. Then she'd get more annoyed that they weren't going away. So it didn't feel like they were better. But then when she'd look back and compare to where they used to be, she realized that she was a lot better. Right. And so this is often what happens, is that we understand that as we're detoxing to release disease from the body, that there's levels and there's layers. And that can be true with the migraines. That can be true with the allergies. That can be true with brain fog, irritability. Really, there's a shift that happens with ego. So the ego takes a hit. The ego it literally dies in detox. And we're going to get a little bit into how to make that happen and how that's a good thing for experiencing higher levels of consciousness. So this is also the reason why the ego death is why there's more of a release of soul symptoms. So these all diminish with detox. So overwhelm, unclear direction, lack of drive, feeling trapped in consumerism, like where you don't know why you're buying what you're buying, disconnect from meaning in your life. All of those are a sign that there is a level of toxicity that's more at the level of the intuitive body, the Vijnana Maya Kosha. So something is going on between the intuitive body, the Vijnana Maya Kosha, and the mind, the Mano Maya Kosha, and spirit as such, which is the subtlest of the koshas or sheaths of the body, the bliss body, the Ananda Maya Kosha. So some people detox just to go into a deeper state of what we would say is like the natural arising pulsation of bliss, which is part and parcel of every human being, right? At the subtlest level between consciousness and who you are. So consciousness as such, and then the first body is the bliss body, the next body is the Vijnana Maya Kosha. That's where purpose, direction, meaning, fulfillment are going to come in, that intuitive body. Next level body down is the mind body, then the energy body, then the physical body. So what detox does is it thins the layers between these bodies so that you feel tangibly your bliss body and you feel clarity in your physical body. You don't have all this junk in these layers, in these sheaths. All right. So I'm going to just go through some basics about how I guide a detox. So for me, I have found over time that tuning into the group's momentum is huge. So even when people sign up for the detox, we notice that it starts to build. I noticed on the Club Thrive forum a couple weeks ago, our mentors started to detox. They started to talk about it, right? Because they're like getting this jump start. So there's a momentum that starts to build. Even those of you who in the beginning of the call, you simply put it on your calendar. And I hope everyone on Team Club Thrive did that as well, right? Like put it on your calendar because that starts to build a momentum for your future. The more you tune into the group's energy, the easier detox is, which means the deeper you go, which means the more allostasis turns into homeostasis, largely through the process of digestion. Okay, we focus on the basics of sleep, intermittent fasting, hydration, and primal movement. I'll get on into that in a minute. I would also include their elimination, and I have that at the end of enemas prevent and alleviate constipation. That also to me is like part of the basic focus of habits. Having everyone sip hot water every 20 minutes. This is an emphasis on hydration. Healing crises usually happen. Remember how I was like the exits are closed, right? That's always tied to dehydration. Because when there's really deep hydration through all the microbiomes of the body, right? The gut microbiome, including the colon microbiome, skin microbiome, lung microbiome, sinus microbiome, oralome. There's even a microbiome in the blood. If everything's hydrated, nothing gets stuck. Nothing gets stuck. We don't have crises. Okay, I provide guidance on weekly meal planner. We'll get into that in a minute, meaning I don't tell people what to eat. I give suggested menus, right? I give suggested fasting times, etc. We do a lot of Q&A to help people individually create their own detox. But I'm not going to tell everybody what to do. That doesn't work. It is not a one-size-fits-all experience. It's about you tuning in to what you need and what you can do. And then it changes, right? It's like you set this great plan and then it changes. And that's good. That means like you're responding to what's going on in the moment. Okay, making food once a day, keeping food as simple as possible, and calories low. I'll get into the calories low in a minute. Food should be simple. Food is not, to me, most people in Western culture, because we're so consumer oriented, and we weren't historically, but we've really been like programmed into this, especially, especially more and more every year, right? Especially with instant gratification given to us by Amazon.com, right? Is that there's like this sense of like we need to fill ourselves up. So if we can minimize that, if we can minimize our emphasis on food just by setting the menu, preparing food once a day, what happens is we start to discover vast amounts of time and space that lead us right back into the bliss body. Okay, group momentum enables breakthroughs that are otherwise impossible. It's very important to read that. So if you're trying to do a detox on your own, it's not worth it. Because the group momentum is significant, meaning you'll go deeper. It means it's like probably the least expensive way. It's like it's the biggest bang for your buck way to age well, to feel how you want to feel in your 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. So to me, it's like such an easy decision to invest in a detox. Like if you don't and you're going it alone, it just means that, to me, it means that you're just missing out on a whole other thing that will bring you deeper over time. And you'll realize that we used to detox together. This isn't new. It's just right now in modern culture, most people around you aren't detoxing. They don't have context for it. And so they'll say things that'll actually bring you off your track, especially if you have things like weddings, funeral. I had a funeral in the last April detox. The weddings, the funerals, the bar mitzvahs, all of the things, right, that happen. Like it's really easy to get thrown off your course and then not be able to go as deep as you wanted. Therefore, have more allostasis go from last season into next season. No bueno. Okay. So group momentum enables breakthroughs that are otherwise impossible. I will stand by this. I can give you a million stories of this. To me, this is really important to understand. This is what our schedule looks like in Club Thrive. So I base it around the solstices and equinox, not exactly. Our detoxes are like a little bit later than the equinoxes, but our challenges happen on the solstices. They kick off around the solstices. And to me, again, this goes back to like we're in sync with the planet, we're in sync with spinning around the sun. Okay, so detox is the adversity habit that reverses aging. All the adversity habits reverse aging. Detox to me is the one where you get the great leap forward as opposed to dinacharya. So dinacharya are the things that we do every day that reverse aging. Detox is seasonal, which actually makes it easier. It means you don't have to eat this way all the time or starve yourself this way all the time. You don't have to do these hard things all the time. They're meant to be done to go in deep. It's kind of like surgery. That's actually what they compare panchakarma to. They say it's natural surgery, right? You go in deep. And when you go in deep, you're really, anyone here who's had surgery, it's like when you have surgery, like you're not of the world. Your consciousness is in a completely altered state. You're not trying to keep up with everybody. You're not leaving the house. You're not socializing. You're not extroverted. You have introverted your consciousness and you have introverted your digestion. Detox in Ayurvedic medicine, the way they see it is it's largely the process of introverting digestion, not just in your GI tract, but the digestion that's happening between every level of tissue of the body. So you're digesting what's in your fat tissue. You're digesting what's in your muscle tissue. You're digesting what's in your bone marrow, even your immunity, which is a subtle tissue in Ayurveda called ojas. So you're digesting the plasma, the blood, the red blood cells, the fat, the bone, goes on, right? And this is really important to understand that it's largely a process of introverting digestion, of turning the digestive capacity not towards food, but towards consciousness, which is in every cell of the body, of your body. Okay, so we have a lot of stories. Thank you, Giselle, for adding stories. I can read stories later, but I see a lot of people here have done detoxes with me, so you guys can tell your own stories if you want. And I'd love to hear what breakthroughs people have had in detox. So I'll take a moment for that in a few minutes. Okay, so I just want to talk about this concept of eating less and what happens when we're fasting. So when we're fasting, ketones release from the liver. We have intensified cognition. When we eat too frequently and we don't do ritucharya, meaning we don't do the seasonal detox, meaning we don't introvert Agni or digestive fire into the cells, is we develop insulin resistance and we develop cognitive complacency. So remember earlier when I said the more white fat we're carrying, the more adverse we will be to doing a detox? That is because of cognitive complacency. We become complacent. We have to understand that that is a symptom of disease. We can diagnose that. We can use that as part of pathogenesis, right? So if we don't want to do it, it means we need to do it more. Oh, the irony. Okay, fasters have adaptive cellular signaling, meaning that their cells are communicating better with each other. If we look at why, it's because of what is surrounding our cells is our cell membranes, and our cell membranes get junky. When our cell membranes get junky, we have this lapse of cellular signaling. So our cells aren't able to communicate with each other. When that happens at the organ level, right, now we go into our organs not functioning as well. For some of you, that's your thyroid. For some of you, that's your liver. For some of you, it's your kidneys, right? For some of you, it's your heart, it's your blood vessels, it's your stomach, it's your colon, it's your microbiomes, right? We have this lack of signaling. And we could go into a whole other lecture on the signaling between the microbiome and the human DNA cells, but we won't. We'll just say that's all grouped into problematic if we're not detoxing. Okay, so fasting, when we fast, what happens? Our mitochondria, which are the little energy centers within our cells, the parts of the cells that make energy, our mitochondria adapts, meaning folded mitochondria will just simply break down. I'll get into that in a moment with autophagy and how that happens. But just know that if that doesn't happen, what happens is you go into mitochondrial dysfunction, meaning you will have less energy. So anyone who feels like they don't have as much energy as they want, that's at the level of mitochondria. So fasting will increase that. So when I said earlier, if you're in our detox, we're doing fast mimicking diet, the majority of the group, doesn't mean everybody, some people do it a week later, majority of the group is doing it between April 8th and the 12th. We're going to go much, much deeper into fasting. And what'll happen is the mitochondria will renew. So afterwards, you'll feel more energy. Some people even feel quite a bit of energy during the process of a deeper fast, just simply because a lot of the dysfunctional mitochondria are getting digested, reabsorbed, and they go through an upcycling process where they're broken down back into their chemistry, and the body uses those molecular components for whatever it needs to use. We also get antioxidant enzymes, whereas on the other side, we get pro-inflammatory cytokines. Bummer. Reduced inflammation for the fasters. For the inflamed who are not fasting, we get more inflammation. We get more inflammation as the fat cells are off-gassing inflammation into the bloodstream. So fasting, we get neuroplasticity, meaning you can learn. So all that stuff I was talking about purpose and soul work and fulfillment, like the depth of fulfillment of the next phase of your life, there's no retirement in Ayurveda, right? There's just next purpose. That next purpose, for those who are in the over 60 crowd, that becomes increasingly subtle. So the next purpose work becomes increasingly subtle, meaning you're working more at the level of your consciousness. You're taking less dramatic action, but you're being more intentional with your consciousness. Neuroplasticity for all generations, right? Neurodysfunction is on the other side, harder to learn. We get suboptimal cognitive function. That leads to dementia. On this faster side, we get optimal cognitive function. We get resistance to injury and disease. Yay, prevention of dementia. So a lot of these habits get, what we find in Club Thrive, these are the habits that get automated. So cryotherapy, fasting, detox, meditation, early to bed, nature therapy, breathing practices, urine therapy, wild plants, primal movement. I'm looking for everyone in Club Thrive to automate the detox habit for life. You can, whether or not you can always join us, it's like it's just part of what you do, and you can read the signs and signals of your body naturally entering detox mode. Your body, if you're paying attention, will naturally enter detox mode. Usually what happens is first you get the food blahs, where you're just like, don't really care what I eat, like not really that hungry. Nothing is as fulfilling, right? Like you're hungry, you eat, and you're like, don't feel that sense of true satisfaction. That's all part of and parcel of the signs of the body going into detox. So the toxins, this is an Ayurvedic perspective, are undigested matter from food that ferments, deoxygenates, and degenerates cellular and intracellular communication and intelligence We just talked about that. That's the picture of the cell membrane. Fat cells, this goes into what we were just talking about with the degeneration that happens and the inflammation that comes out of the fat cells. So one of the ways to know, anyone who's been here a while knows that I'm going to have you do, you take your belly fat and you see if you can pinch more than an inch. If you can pinch more than an inch, that means there's excess fat cells. There's excess white fat, which means that the body is producing what's on the right, chemokines, adipokines, and cytokines. Meaning your fat cells are producing inflammation, which could end up feeling like joint pain. It could end up feeling like a headache or itchy skin or acne or asthma or even, rhinitis, increased susceptibility to cold and flus. All of that is over on that pro-inflammation side. And then we see the diseases of chronic inflammation, cancer, autoimmune, cardiovascular, obesity, any of the degenerative organ diseases. All right, so I think we get a bit about why fasting's cool and why fasting is part of detox, even if it's not like completely water fasting. And I don't even advocate that much for complete water fasting. So there's a lot of different ways to get your body into a place where the fat cells are entering circulation. I want you to see on the optimization part, your body naturally produces stem cells and growth hormone. So right now in sort of high-end individualized medicine, a lot of people are getting injections of growth hormone and stem cells, but your body naturally produces stem cells. And when your body produces your own stem cells, it's better than getting injections. They know where to go and they know what to do. Oh, okay, Nicole, I see Nicole's here. So this is, kind of going back to what happens when ketones are released is it starts to fix insulin problems. So this is, hi Nicole, good to see you here. We have your quote, my blood sugar has gone down by half, right? And I expect it to keep coming down. Inflammation between my hand joints and feet has come down. They feel much finer. Elimination is better. So that's naturally what happens in detox is you're just taking the load off the system and the body will naturally start to heal itself. Why? Because this is what's happening is you're getting this cell shrinkage. Your cells are literally shrinking. And if the body wants to break down a cell, that's called apoptosis. So autophagy is when the body starts to feed on itself instead of on food. That's what I'm calling the introversion of digestion. Instead of putting your attention outward, you put your attention inward. Instead of putting your digestifier on digesting things from outside of your body, aka food, it starts to digest things from inside of your body. And as that happens, the body will also kill off cells that are unhealthy, maybe cells that have mutated. And this is where it gets into prevention of cancer and prevention of the degenerative diseases of your ancestors. That all happens because now the body can digest itself. There's often, the more you do it, the more that is a state of bliss when that's happening. And I think that's an important thing to realize is it doesn't have to be uncomfortable. So the more we're we're feeling the group momentum and we're putting ourselves in environments that help us do that, and sometimes that's just taking a hot bath, sitting under a tree, taking a walk, meditating, not socializing, not taking in a lot of external stimuli. What happens is we naturally enter where autophagy feels really, really good. And we start to feel more refreshed and clear. Now, the more toxic our fat tissue is, whether we're eating fast food, we're exposed to a lot of endocrine disrupting chemicals, it's not going to feel like bliss because that's going to be recirculating in the bloodstream. That's why we need the exits to be open. All right, so how I structure our detoxes, I do a 3-week process because I don't expect people to be able to jump right in. And I'd rather you didn't jump right in. So I take a week to ease people into detox, meaning you can still have stuff on your schedule. You can still have commitments. There can still be a lot going on. But the less there is going on, the more prepared you are to go in deep in the second week. So the second week is when we go in deep. The third week is when we ease out. The ease out week is super important because we want to have time to automate the habits we want to keep. So in the go in deep part, there's going to be massive realizations. You're going to redefine what is food. You're going to redefine who are the people you want to hang out with. You're going to redefine what your daily routine looks like at home. All of those things will naturally happen in the go in deep week. Then you got to put it into action. So the ease out week is where we put it into process in the real world. So it's like Can I do this and that? Can I have my real life, my job, my family, my responsibilities, and take what I learned from this experience? Capture the gains. We're not looking like often we have these exaltation types experiences during week 2 when we go in deep and we're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to change everything. I'm never going to eat sugar again. Caffeine shall never grace my lips. Alcohol, it's gone forever. Like we have these massive, these aspirations around exaltations. And then in week 3, it's like, oh wait, that wasn't real. But I can do this. And what happens over time, because this is a seasonal habit, is you get a little better every time. And then certain things just fall away. And that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for things that are no longer part of what the body, mind, spirit wants to just fall away on their own, just like a ripe fruit from the tree. That's how they describe it in Ayurvedic medicine, is that the pattern leaves when the process is ripened all the way to the point of just like giving way. And that's really what we're looking for. It's not a stripping away type of a detox. All right, easing in, make your schedule, set your intention. See, we already did 2 out of 3, and then getting hydrated. People will do this through green juices, through spice water. We teach all these different ways of doing this in our simple detox, and a little bit about how to get a little bit more specific towards what your body type is and what your needs are for the specific spices and plant foods that you add to your hydration process. This enables us, again, like preparing this ripening. It's like it's the juicy, heavy fruit that drops from the tree, right? It's, when you see like dried fruits, they often are stuck on the tree and they haven't like just released. And that's part of, again, what we're doing in this first week with deep hydration. There's also in Ayurvedic medicine a process called oleation, where we're using a lot of oil. Those of you who do urine therapy would increase your urine therapy the week before. And this is all going to help the microbiomes go into a state of deep hydration and allow the microbiomes to release the biofilms, which is really important for extending health span. We're just dropping in that first week of easing in, we're dropping into an ultra healthy culture. Nourished, fit, rested. And we're taking a big step back from the people and things in our life that are leading to more inflammation, more exhaustion, more overscheduling. This is an example of like the most basic seed recipe for sipping hot water in that week before: cumin, coriander, fennel. And we might grind it into a powder, or we might just put whole seeds into hot water and sip that throughout the day. And that's going to start to introvert the Agni. That's going to start to digest the junk that's on the cell membranes. As that gets digested, right, there's going to be more cell signaling. There's going to be more fat released from fat cells. As that happens, the cells of the body are nourished, right? They're just absolutely nourished by the energy that the fat cells are holding, the triglycerides. Those triglycerides enter the bloodstream. And so you're not hungry in a fasting state. Yay for that. So all this starts to happen as part of the ease in. We start to tune into what are the keystone habits, the ones I was going into before: the fasting, the detox, the early to bed, breathing practices, time in nature, cryotherapy. And what often people find is that there's even just 1 or 2 habits that start to make all the other habits happen. So for some people, that's starting to make their food for the day in the morning. That starts to allow the rest of the day to go into flow. And that's really what a keystone habit is. I'm not going to get into this. Now, go in deep. This is the second week. So in this coming up April detox that I'm leading for Club Thrive members and those of you who want to join us and can get a ticket, my team will put the link in the deal in the chat for your get a deal code, is we're doing fast mimicking diet. We're doing a liver stone flush. We're getting the stones out of our liver. It's just clean nourishment. It's pretty simple. Not everybody will do all 3 of these things. Some people might just do the third one, just clean nourishment. I've seen people be enormously successful in just having clean nourishment and sipping hot water for a couple weeks. I've seen massive improvements, meaning like getting rid of headaches, getting rid of the seasonal sinus headaches that might come with like the feeling of being bloated, just simply through having more clean nourishment and nourishing their microbiome. So we'll talk quite a bit on my live sessions in the April Detox on microbiome health and what's going on with cravings, emotional eating, and how that's all coming from what the microbiome diversity is looking like. So let's talk about going in deep. As we go in deep, this is the introversion of the energy. Again, like, introverts and extroverts as personality types. You can also think of this as two different types of digestion. So as you start to introvert your digestion, the subtle energy starts to turn on. This is the chakras. This is why those of you who are coming in more for a enlightenment, an evolutionary enlightenment experience, these are some things that you'll notice that you just simply have more access to, that it's easier to do soul work. It's easier to have spiritual evolution. It's easier to feel the subtle energy body. It's easier to do chakra type work in the detox. And to me, this is the reward, right? The reward doesn't wait till the end. The reward happens in the going in deep process, where you're able to play in your subtle energy body. Now, if your attention is extroverted and your Agni is extroverted, your digestive fire is extroverted because you're just eating food all the time, regardless of season, and you're still on the 2 to 3 meals a day, you're still on the 1,200 plus calories a day, regardless of the season, you're avoiding Ritucharya, this is really hard to access. It doesn't just occur. But when you start to introvert your awareness, introvert your Agni, you get access to the bells and whistles that are on the inside. And this is what leads, playing with the energy body, awakening the energy body with breathing practice, with subtle body practices, is what enables access into the bliss body. And then the bliss body gets turned on. And as the bliss body gets turned on, the more you notice that you don't need all this stuff. You're outside of consumer culture, and now you're seated more in creator culture, meaning you're much more awake to creating the future that you want to experience, both for yourself and for your next calling. All of that comes through the Vijnanamaya Kosha, the intuitive body connecting with the subtle energy body. A lot of those of you who have done detox more in like Western culture, or it's really like all about the food and all about supplements and taking a colon flush or liver flush, taking supplements as herbs, you probably haven't had this education around how the subtle energy body just naturally turns on, and that this is a huge part of more of the Eastern medicine type of detox. I think this is important to highlight, especially, for those of you who are going to be coaching detox or in our detox certification program, as we look at that. Number one global disease for humans is depression. It means that people have less and less and less access into this. Because when you're in your subtle energy body, you are not depressed, right? You are feeling your own vitality. You're feeling depth of connection, unity consciousness. You are feeling bliss. And bliss is the opposite. I think we would all agree. Bliss is the opposite of depression. Depression feels like the weight of the world is on you. Subtle energy body feels enlightened, right? See the difference in those terms, depressed versus enlightened. All of that has to do with this going in deep. Many of you who've detoxed a lot with me in the past, you're like, this is what I'm after this time. I just want to go play inside. I want to play in that vibration. I want to have access to that. It's great to know you might want to update your big why, right? You might update that piece of paper and just be like, actually, I have a bigger why. This was a few levels deeper than those superficial ones. And that is beautiful and good. It's also much easier to do hard practices, hard, subtle body and practices like breathing practices and meditation practices, energy body practices when you're in detox, because you're simply not eating as much food. Your awareness is already introverted. So it's much easier to go in deep. All right, fast mimicking diet. This is part of how we do that. So again, you're not completely fasting, but you can see men and women are having somewhere between 500 and 750 calories a day for 5 days. This is what turns on stem cells. So those of you who want more stem cells for more longer, you'll do fast mimicking for longer. The tongue, people get really interested in their tongue, because in your tongue, during detox, we teach a lot of this in the going in deep part of detox, is like you can start to see what your body's releasing. You can start to see a lot more of what the body is holding. And as it's releasing, you might see this top left corner of just like junk on the tongue. You can see if there's a lot of nervous energy in your system that's releasing as the cracks or the tremors. A lot of people notice malabsorption. A lot of people notice tongue coating and cracks. And we'll coach you more through like what all that means in the detox. So I want to show you, like we looked at this slide before of autophagy and apoptosis, this breakthrough cycle. This is also happening at the mental and emotional and soul level, that you will have breakdowns Part of what will break down will be in the emotional body, right? So it's not necessarily desirable, but this can happen where you feel even more blah if you have more kapha energy or more kapha toxicity. You can feel even more irritated if you have pitta toxicity, and even more overwhelmed if you have vata toxicity. But if we know that that's what's happening as these are releasing, then we open the exits, we calm the system down, we take the walks, we do the enemas, we be with the emotion and allow the emotion to digest with the presence of consciousness. And that really is the strongest practice, is just that, just the being with what is. And we learn how to be even in the release of inflammation, including emotional inflammation. This is often what happens, is those of us who have like fallen off the wagon, we notice a huge bump up in stabilizing our fasting rhythm. So those of you who had great, those of you who feel like you've fallen off the wagon, no problem. You'll notice like a huge lift. It's a huge way, like it's just like bump to get back on track. And that'll start to kick in as you go in deep. The other thing that happens, I just wanted to show this slide on emotional detox, is there's this process of forgiveness. I often find it's forgiveness of the self first. So first and foremost, you forgive yourself. Maybe there's regret. Maybe there's like this looking back and having regrets that weigh heavy on the spiritual self. And that starts to just give way. There's this process of self-empathy that naturally happens. What we also notice is that these grudges that we may have held towards self and others, that those start to give way. And anyone who wants to work more on this in this upcoming detox, just let me know in the chat here, like what you're most interested in going deep in, whether it's like subtle energy body work, whether it's releasing grudges, whether it's in stimulating internal pathogens. Let me know so that, because I have 3 live calls with you guys during the detox, let me know so I can be even more useful to you. Okay, so this is like, to me, a really basic habit that I know will totally gross some of you out, where you put your own pee back in the system. Pee is full of electrolytes. It's structured water. It's already been in your blood plasma, so it's the most hydrating liquid you have, that when there's a healing crisis, that you just use. I mean, you can use anything. You can use a saline enema kit from the store and just dump out the saline. You'll notice that your pee is salty. It is your own natural saline. And you just basically open the main exit of the body, which is the anus. Yeah, so super simple stuff. This stuff becomes more of a habit that you have in your back pocket during detox. I notice the more I talk about urine therapy in the most basic ways to use it, first people often have a reaction of disgust, and then it's like, the inner scientist gets provoked of being like, why would this work? Why have people been doing this for a long time? And then more of a curiosity of like, how might it work for me? So if you're in any of those stages, yay for you. I find, just as like a public health servant, which I really do consider myself a public health servant, I just need to provide the information. Okay, last week is easing out. And in the easing out, we're just trying to automate the rhythm. So rhythm, Rata, RTA. Rata is this concept from Ayurveda. I mean, you can see it everywhere in any kind of holistic medicine, that there's a rhythm that's behind the connection of universal consciousness into individual consciousness. Circadian rhythm, ultradian rhythm, these rhythms that are part and parcel of how we evolved. And what we're doing in the 3rd week is we're just saying this feeding rhythm, sleeping rhythm, fasting rhythm. What do we want to automate? Like, what can we do? From the big insight that happened, like how much of you're now surrounded by piles and piles and piles of gold, but you only have one backpack, right? And it's like, what are you going to put in the backpack to take with you in the next journey of the next couple of months? And in that 3rd week, that's all we're trying to do, is say like, this is the gold. These are the insights that I can automate. We start to feel more grounded, warm-hearted, clear, and excited about our future. And often this really spreads into the people that we're around. So they say, I love how Alan Watts talks about the real path of enlightenment is through the sharing of the gifts. That if you're enlightened just for yourself, and again, detox is the process of enlightenment, physically, metaphysically, that the way we know your enlightenment is by what you share. It's our only measure. It's not by your internal bliss. It's by that which gives us a contact high. And to me, this is so important. I've seen this in my family. My kid and husband can do fast mimicking diet. They do liver stone flushes. They do all the things just simply because it's become an automated household habit. All right. So we're going in April 3rd to 24th. Anyone who's in the detox, hopefully you can think of a few people that should be joining us and giving them your free tickets. You all have free tickets to give away. Those of you who are new to us and need to buy your ticket. It'll help you be invested. This is your code. I'll put it all in the chat. So yogidetox.com, and then you can still get this screaming deal if you use this coupon code. All right. Now we're on to Q&A. So really, I would love anyone who's detoxed with us before just to tell, if you want to tell a story, if you want to tell, like, maybe you can even go back to your first detox. And what happened, like why you show up, like why you're here today, what you've gained from the habit of detox. I would love to hear. So if anyone wants, you can use the hand raise in the reactions. There's a little button and you can just turn on hand raise. If anyone wants to share a story, I really feel like that's most powerful. Yeah, Jackie, please.
Hi, Cate. My partner and I started detoxing. God, I'm trying to remember the year. Must have been 2012 or something like that, 13. And we both felt so blown away by how we felt afterwards. We felt both of us lost weight really easily. Just it dropped. I've never lost weight like that. It's always been a big trauma. And then we started adopting immediately, the green smoothies in our habit. That felt really good. We did sort of the simple version of it. We did kitchery and over the years just continued to do it either on our own or with you at least once a year. And if this was before you had your whole WPA and YHC community, you were starting to cultivate them. And then, I was invited into YHC and to share, because like what you said, I wanted to share this with my students. I had no idea that this was going to be a kind of a career path. I just thought, well, I'll get a group of people to do these with me because that'll help me do it. And little over the, like 7, almost 9 years now, I've been, leading YHC, the yoga health coaching, and integrating the detoxes I've been doing on my own, and then, bringing people to you. But now I'm doing my own detoxes in my group. And, I just keep, Cate is really the person who's really transformed my life. I had a huge bike accident in 2016. And afterwards, I used what I learned in these detoxes and in your programs to heal myself. And it was a miraculous healing. My surgeon wouldn't give me a diagnosis. I didn't know I was going to walk. So these were such life-changing skills. And they came over years. I wasn't really perfect at the beginning and did great detox and then fell off the wagon and then started to do it on a more, a regular basis throughout the year of integrating the habits. And then, what's so wonderful in your community is you keep adding new skills and, hey, let's try this. Let's try urine therapy. Let's try fast mimicking diet. How about that liver? So there's a constant growing. There never feels like, okay, I've got it all. See you later, Cate. There's just this ongoing personal growth that I've experienced through the years of being with you. And it all started with detox, really started with the detox and living Ayurveda course. So it's just like the body of knowledge that you have and that your curiosity of continuing to learn has been really supportive for me and my students and the people that I am leading in my life. So it's a life-changing, even a week long or 3 weeks or whatever you did. I think I remember doing, here's your 3 weeks detox. I did 1 week. Bye-bye. That was enough for me. That's all I could do. And you could enter where you were. And I love that. There was no like, oh, you're a loser, man. You're not doing what everybody's supposed to be doing. You just had this real acceptance of where I was, met me where I was. And then more I was able to integrate, more I wanted to do more. It was a really great way of leading people, without have these huge expectations of trying to do it perfectly. And it just built more curiosity. Okay, wow, what if I did more than 1 week? What would happen then? So it was a great approach and very human. You could you could do it well, not do it well, and still get benefit from it. You didn't have to be perfect. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to highlight the skill set, that you talked about, like when you have an accident or an injury or something is catastrophic in your life, scary diagnosis, a loss in the family. If you have the habit of detox, it comes right back. You know exactly what to do for yourself. And so when Jackie's talking about self-healing, like learning self-healing on a deeper level, right? And I know many of you are yoga teachers, many of you are meditation teachers, many of you are practitioners of various sorts. This difference between dinacharya and richicharya is huge. So that the daily versus the seasonal. So the daily is there, but it's the seasonal that will drop you into levels of depth. And what goes down, right, goes up. So that means that's like the higher levels of enlightenment, the higher levels, the higher dimensions of consciousness. And when we're in a deep healing process, or when we need to be in a deep healing process, whether that's emotional healing with grief, or whether that's physiological healing with disease, we want to access these higher dimensions, because when we're in the theta brainwave states, when we're in the delta brainwave states, when we're in the gamma brainwave states, we're entering a much higher dimension of our neural networks and how deep healing happens. So it's so important to be able to pull back. And when I see the reactivity of people in crisis and going towards like scrambling and going more towards emergency medicine and emergency choices, this is where we can make catastrophic choices that really affect the long-term, our long-term quality of life. So what Jackie shared to me is really important. This is a skill-building exercise that happens a few times a year, right? That's really how I see detox. Is like, you're here to build your skills. These are the skills you're going to need later, and you don't know when, right? So build them now so that they're right there for when you need them then. I also want to remark that I was remembering back to, I used to be like an authoritarian dictator in my detox leading, like back 2002, 2003, 2004, 2005. So any of you who had those earlier experiences, like I really wanted everyone to do the thing. And it was through hard learning. I think my own insecurities around knowing more than I could embody, right? Knowing more cognitively than I did physiologically. And having those things catch up over time. So if anyone struggles with that, like you know what to do, your mind knows what to do, but you can't get your body to do it, I can relate. And sometimes we're trying to force ourselves or force each other into doing things that we need to ripen more, right? We need more of a self-compassionate approach. And for me, that was really hard won wisdom. And part of it came from people after, just saying like, hey, this is all I did, but it really made a difference. And me being able to be okay with that, and me being real with myself and real with like what I can actually do in any given detox, being a mom, being a CEO, being a rebel, all those things. And that compassion with the self will actually invite us into some of the deeper layers. That is what softens and gives us access into the deeper layers, both of the release of toxicity, the release of grudges, these like long held patterns, these karmas, often these family karmas, maybe with our parents, maybe with our siblings, maybe with our ancestors, maybe with our offspring, right? These deep karmas can then start to release to the surface. And now when that happens, we enter higher stages of energy efficiency, meaning we have a lot more energy, we have a lot more clarity, we have that clarity between the koshas or the sheaths of the self. So we have much more access to the bliss body, meaning other people have more access to the bliss body through us, right? It's sometimes called Shakti Pat, where the Shakti goes right through you into those around you. So you're naturally inspiring to those around you. I noticed this on the family reunion last week. I was at the family reunion and I spent quite a bit of time with my cousin's kids. I'm their cousin. I'm like their, whatever that's called, your aunt, your second cousin aunt kind of thing. And I could see that they were so interested in my adversity habits, because they hadn't seen that modeled before in adult, nor the neuroplasticity, nor the maybe neuro-emotional availability for deep intimacy, right? And this is all what happens when we don't need to guard. We don't put this energy into protection because we're protected from within. That's the definition of ojas in Ayurveda, this protection that arises from within. So we don't need to protect around our heart. And so what happens is not just the contact high and the contact of connectivity, but what happens is this contact of adversity habits. People become much more interested in like, what are you doing? Because I want to look and feel like you when I'm, well, you're 51. You don't act like a 51-year-old. You don't act like my parents, right? Or that generation. And that's really what we start to see. And that's a huge, to me, a huge, huge, huge reason to go in as deep as you can, as you get permission to from your own physiology during the detox. And that'll be amplified by the community because as people around you are doing it, they're doing some of your work. So then you can just drop in. And I want anyone who feels like this is hard to be like, okay, so then my approach, if this is hard for you, your approach is to actually let the community do a lot of the work for you. Let us do that work for you. We're really good at it. We have decades of experience. So let us do some of that work, whether that work is in your subtle energy body, in your nervous system, you feel anxious, or whether that's in your physical body with like you've got fat tissue creating really, really, really intense, overwhelming cravings. Let us do some of that work for you. Kim, and then Chrissy. Or I don't actually, sorry, Chrissy, you don't have your hand up, but Kim, go ahead.
Hi. Actually, what I want to say is really just, I remember about, I guess, 10 years ago, I started with you. And my first detox, I was so lost. I was Vata crazy. I was anxious. I was scared. It was really very, very I don't know. I was really, really out of sync. And the only thing I really want to say is that 10 years later, it's the biggest gift I ever gave myself because I never, ever could imagine where I would be now. I am so calm most of the time. I'm so much in a state of my real nature, so close to where I wanted to be at that time. And detox brings you back to your body. And in this world, the body is not something we're used to. We're so much in our heads, so much in everything else. And the body is such an ally. It knows. I mean, we embody a body, and there's a reason for that. And it's because it's such tremendous wisdom. And if that's the only thing you get for like 3 weeks, the little tiny bit of wisdom your body's going to be sharing with you, to do that twice a year for like as many years as you can, even if it's just a tiny little bit a year, it's worth every hardship, every second you do, because it's your best ally. It knows much more than your head ever will. So I'm just like really, really grateful that I've ever started this because it changed my life. That's it. So I think if you're hesitating or if you're not sure if any reason, just go where you want, where you can, and it's perfect. It's going to be perfect. That's exactly where it's supposed to go. So, yeah.
Thanks, Kim. Yeah, it really comes back to life is accumulative, right? So we can accumulate positive stressor habits or we can accumulate negative stressor habits. And it's two totally different, it's like same you, but two totally different bodies, like two different choices. And so hearing what Kim's done over the last decade and this law of accumulation, right? We hear the difference in emotions of inflammation to the emotions of autophagy, of the emotions of detox. That's so good. Brian, and I'll take any questions now too. So if anyone just has a question instead of a share, that's fine. Brian, nice to meet you.
Hi, Kate. It's nice to meet you too. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Right. I'm not very into the Zoom thing. So I'm not sure if you've seen my message, but I'm struggling with kind of the opposite of I detoxed too much because I was doing it on my own. And so I was wondering, my main question is, how do you deal with like malnourishment during the liver flushes? So what's been happening is my body, like I lost so much weight, and after the liver flushes, it seems like my liver gets clogged back up, so the bile won't flow. So I'm not digesting the fats and stuff. So I lost like 20 pounds, and I was into getting,
What started it all, the weight loss?
It might be stress along with the liver flushes. Like I was just struggling to eat, but my job, I've got a swing shift job. So I need to get there. I know that's really putting a burden on me.
Yeah. Do you have an exit plan? Or
as soon as I get some strength back, I'm going to start looking pretty hardcore for another job.
Okay. So when we're out of circadian rhythm, so what you have like in Ayurvedic medicine would be like a severe vata imbalance. So when vata gets imbalanced, you go to dispersion. So rather than your physiology being able to build, it just disperses. And so it's going to be really hard. Like even, the like take this, eat this, do that. It's going to be really, really hard to do that when you're out of circadian rhythm. And so sometimes it's like, if you were dying, what would you do? Like if you were dying, could you quit your job tomorrow and I would look at it that way. Because it's so hard to counter. You can't really reverse a vata imbalance on that schedule because of the mind and because of the nature of the circadian rhythm. The microbiome generates the circadian rhythm. The microbiome generates the serotonin, which generates the feel good, right? Which allows kapha, which allows cohesion, which allows muscle tissue to build and fat tissue to accumulate. So it's like it's that like one step forward, two steps back with a night job.
Yeah. So it's pretty much, it would be safer to just quit the job and be on the lookout for a job. And so I'd be on my circadian rhythm and heal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Even if that means like you have to move in with someone, like if you can't pay your rent, like it really, like I would really look at it as like it's so hard. It's going to be so hard to try to get ahead to someday, like someday when, right? Because you're just one step forward, two steps back, which is pulling you backward.
Yeah. Yeah. Right now I took a month off of work and it seems like I'm making progress, but I was nervous about, I'm supposed to go back April 1st. And so I'm going to be on day shifts for 2 weeks, but then it's going to be night shifts for 2 weeks and switches back and forth like that. So sounds a little too aggressive to get back on my rhythm if I do that.
Yeah.
From telling me. Okay.
Because the body knows. And so even on your 2 weeks of day shifts, it's still thinking ahead to this isn't going to last. And the more you have that going to last, the body knows it's not sustainable, right? So if the body and the mind are like, this isn't sustainable, then even in those rebuilding weeks, you're not really rebuilding because there's still the underlying stress, like there's eustress and there's distress. So your mind is in distress, right? Yeah. Because your mind, in Ayurvedic medicine, the manomaya kosha runs the physical body. The mind runs the physical body. So in every cell of your body is distress, and that's vata. It's agitated vata. In the Ayurvedic practitioners, it's vata in the manomaya kosha, right? So we've got vata running the scene. So even if like you're eating perfectly and doing everything perfectly and all the things on those 2 weeks when you're on day shifts, there's still distress running in the background.
Yeah. Okay. I think I got my answer.
Okay. And you're not the first one I've seen this happen with. Like I've seen this a lot, Brian. Like, and just sometimes knowing that, like that this is part of that. It's not, it's not your fault. They don't tell you this when you're getting the night job, like all that. But just for you to know, like maybe for certain people, they can handle it. Their physiology can handle it because they have more ojas. They just have more stability in their nervous system. Because you can't, that actually means that your subtle power is in your subtle energy body. So on a dharmic level or like a life purpose level, you can use this as like, this is a big clue on your scavenger hunt to what's next in your life is to really respect your subtle energy body. And that will lead you, that'll lead you to more gardens of Eden.
All right. I really appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Good luck.
Thank you.
Sure. All right. Thank you all for coming. It's been a pleasure to be with you. We'll turn this into a podcast and we'll send out the recording if there's anyone that you all know that need to hear this. If you heard Jackie and Kim share, like, this can really be a turning point for people in their lives. So if there's someone that you're like, they need a wake up call, they need a turning point, or they simply need a community of resonance to go in deeper, please share it with them, because we really want the people who need this the most to be able to find out. All right. You can all unmute if you want. Namaste and have a great day. I'll see you April 3rd, yogidetox.com. And for those who need the promo code, it's SD150 off, all caps, no spaces, for Simple Detox 150 off the price. Yay. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cate. Thank you, Cate.
Thank you.
Thanks.